We very much don't live in a Christian society because we live in a Christian Zionist society, and Christian Zionism is it's a paradox, okay? There's no such thing as Christian Zionism because Zionism is all about identity, okay? I know what your faith is. It's Zionism, okay? You guys behave like gangsters. You behave like you are only loyal to one another, and you'll come beat up any person, figuratively. You'll take care of any person that gets in your way. And the world can see that now.
Candace Owens just spilled the cold, hard truth about Christian Zionism, calling it a paradox and the ultimate form of identity politics. And in this clip, she talks about how that's especially ironic and hypocritical when some of the most devout Zionists pretended to oppose identity politics when it came from the liberal establishment. And in this clip, she references some things that Dave Smith and Tucker Carlson talked about recently. Let's get right into it. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Anyway, two of the three people that I still like that are within the realm of politics got together. Tucker Carlson joined Dave Smith. I kind of want to qualify Tucker Carlson. I feel like I want to say the stupendous Tucker Carlson joined Dave Smith on his show to respond to all of this Zionist backlash that he was receiving for having a conversation with Nick Fuentes. And foremost, Tucker explains why he had the conversation with Nick Fuentes. Take a listen.
I didn't make Nick Fuentes, hardly. I just want to know what this is about. And I wanted to make the point that I often make and now seems even more important than it ever has, which is that virtue and sin are not transmitted genetically. Right. There is no such thing as blood guilt. Therefore, collective punishment is always immoral. God created each person individually. He did not create communities at once. He created people. I think this is a theology one, isn't it? All of us will die and in the end face God alone. So it's about the person, and people can be changed by God, by the way. And the New Testament is that story of people who were, in the case of the whole hero of the New Testament, the human hero is a guy called Paul, was murdering Christians as a Pharisee, and then becomes the greatest proselytizer in the history of Christianity and my personal hero. So don't tell me that people can't be changed because of their blood. Now, that is the basis. That position is the basis of Western civilization. We often talk about Western civilization, and we're all defending Western civilization. Israel's defending Western civilization. Israel does not have a Western position on this question. The Israeli position, not of all Israelis, by the way, and certainly not of all Jews, but I'm saying of the Israeli government and of a couple of its ministers, which they say this out loud all the time, is that everybody who's related to a terrorist shares in his guilt. That's collective punishment. It is blood guilt, and it's antithetical to Christianity and to the West. And so for me, and by the way, Israel's not the only country that does this. Most countries do this. Literally, most countries do this. All of Asia, India, this is like an intuitive response that people have.
Yeah, Zionism is identity politics. It's just a slightly different flavor of it, wielded mostly by right-wing Zionists. And that is true what he said about it. This is what figures in the Israeli government say about it, like Smotrich and Katz and Ben-Gvir. When Smotrich says, hey, we need to have Israeli settlements in Gaza, that will happen despite the ceasefire. Why? Because he views that as the Israeli form of Lebensraum. It's part of Greater Israel to ethnically cleanse those people. And Benjamin Netanyahu, just days after October 7th, or the day after October 7th, called the Palestinians Amalek, referring to them as the tribe in the Bible that were just wiped out completely. Not a subsection of terrorists of the Amalekites, but all of them. Likening the Palestinians to that, that's what they do. This is a collective judgment, a collective ideology that paints people in that brush. And I love the story of Paul. It's the ultimate redemption arc, the best redemption arc maybe in human history, right? And that shows an example. And if you're telling me that Nick Fuentes, above anyone else, is beyond the pale when, you platformed and talked with Benjamin Netanyahu and not pushed back more than Tucker Carlson did push back against Fuentes, I'm sorry, I can't take anyone making those arguments seriously.
Okay, so that I actually introduced that wrong. That's Tucker just giving the broader delivering the broader theological point, which is important, that people have the capacity to change. And actually, we're kind of in this weird psychosis as a society. And I would say that this is kind of one of the things they're trying to deliver to us, is that some people are just deplorable. Like everything about them is just so deplorable and we have to throw them away. And that's what creates these sort of movements where people are just tired of it. They're just tired of this. This is not the way that Christians think, actually. We very much don't live in a Christian society because we live in a Christian Zionist society. And Christian Zionism is it's a paradox, okay? There's no such thing as Christian Zionism because Zionism is all about identity, right? It's all about identity. Because I am a Jew, I therefore have a right to this land. Because they are Jews and I am a Christian, I recognize that I'm going to get into heaven if I just worship how Bibi Netanyahu, even when he kills tens of thousands of kids. That is a political ideology. It is not a religion, and it is dangerous, and it is wrong, and it is backwards, and it is, of course, antithetical to the Bible.
Totally agree with that. There's no justification biblically that we have to support the modern state of Israel. And I don't care how many times you cite Genesis 12:3, Zionists, talking about a promise between God and Abram before there was even a classical kingdom of Israel, saying those who curse you will be cursed. He's not talking about Israel, and certainly not the Israel that came thousands of years later as the result of a massive land redistribution scheme created by the UN, primarily supported by the UK and the United States. There's no evidence of that. And by the way, that whole idea that we do have an obligation as Christians to support the modern political state of Israel had no place in any form of Christendom for 1800 years. Those arguments didn't even emerge until people like John Nelson Darby and William Blackstone, not the jurist William Blackstone, but the Christian Zionist William Blackstone, came about in, again, the 19th century. This was totally unknown in all the annals of Christendom up till then. It's a total perversion and a total bastardization of our faith if you're a Christian.
Now, Tucker then explains specifically why he chose to have a conversation with Nick Fuentes. Take a listen.
You should be forgiving always. Things are being said right now that almost seem like they can't be forgiven. They're exhortations to violence. Clearly they are. Et cetera, et cetera. Slander of a kind that's so severe. Like, how do you get past that? I think we should force ourselves. I interviewed Nick Fuentes to attack my wife and my son and my dad. He can attack my dad. And I interviewed him anyway. I choked it back and I thought to myself, I want to hear this, and I'm just going to I try to make myself do that. So if tomorrow John Podhoretz is like, or whomever I'm mad at, right? People I used to know are calling me a Nazi, is like, you know what? I don't think he's actually a Nazi. Like, let's have a real conversation. Let's do the best for America. They should all be accepted. I don't think we should have permanent enemies who are American citizens. I don't, because I think the whole idea of it is we're united by citizenship, our common Americanness. Everybody's welcome, even if we hated each other 20 minutes ago. And Glenn Greenwald, I mean, I hated Glenn Greenwald. Now I think he was one of my favorite people in the world, not just politically, but personally. Like, forgiveness is essential. People change. Allow for that. Don't draw permanent lines in the sand where it's like, I hate you and I will hate your son too. Like, that's non-Western thinking. We don't allow that.
Man, I couldn't agree with that more, and I have to take that to heart personally, too. This is a lessons learned for me because I have such disdain and disregard for so many of these Zionists and neocons. I think it's justified in my mind, but I should hold out on, the possibility that they could change, that they could, tread a more light path to, try to make amends for the sins of their past, because I have many of my own. And I'll have to explain a lot to my creator. And one of them is that I was a former neocon and Zionist myself. Up until 2004, I was repeating pro-war Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld propaganda leading up to the war in Iraq. That's what my background is. And I think in some ways it's given me insights into the neocon mindset. And I changed. This is not to say, I'm not boasting whatsoever. I promise. I'm totally fallible. I'm totally imperfect. And I try to make that clear. But I have to see that in other people. I have to see that in potential murderers, because that's what Paul was. On the road to Damascus, he was heading there to persecute more Christians to their death. He was at the stoning of Stephen. And we can learn from that. And I think it was so powerful and inspiring for Tucker to say that this is just a poisonous mentality. This idea that you're going to be permanently, pitted against this person and his son. It's collectivism that's odious, and it has no place in a free society, especially a liberty-oriented one that I would like.
I want you to really consider, you listen to Tucker's perspectives and what's guiding his perspectives. and then go backwards and listen to like Mark Levin and these people that get on their platforms and call him irredeemable, and you realize there's a different spirit moving within these groups, right? And he is what Christianity is, right? It's about forgiveness. It's about when you're angry, not assuming that there's some like blood oath that you need to honor, but saying, you know what, Nick Fuentes says something crappy things about me and I'm going to speak to him. I did the same thing. I was like the bigger person, hosted him, and he was, by the way, still a jerk. But this idea that he shouldn't have a platform, he shouldn't be allowed to speak, he shouldn't be allowed to think, he shouldn't be allowed to breathe. What is that from? What is your faith? You're definitely not going to convince me that that's the first 5 books of the Bible. Okay. I know what your faith is. It's Zionism. Okay. You guys behave like gangsters. You behave like you are only loyal to one another, and you'll come beat up any person figuratively. You'll take care of any person that gets in your way. And the world can see that now. So what's your next move? To just keep doing this? To just keep behaving like this? And just know that every act that you make, every show, everything that you make go viral with you speaking in the way that you speak, and then people get to hear Tucker, he gets bigger and you get smaller, okay? He gets bigger, our ideas get bigger, your ideas get smaller, because people can perceive the nastiness that's guiding it and they want nothing to do with it, okay?
Yeah, I have to agree with that. And I think this video, also beyond the topic that it's covering, shows in some ways why Tucker Carlson is so popular, because he is humble, he has humility, he admits fault for his past wrongdoing, transgressions against others, citing Glenn Greenwald as a situation where he used to hate the guy and now he considers him a very close friend. And by the way, we love Glenn Greenwald and Liberty Vault here too. You guys know that. I think Glenn is a hero of the modern journalistic age, and I can see why Tucker likes him. But that's just one example. And we shouldn't just turn our backs on everyone. No matter how hell-bent on murder and destruction they seem to be, because there are redemption changes. Paul's the ultimate example of that. The Jews tried to kill him after he turned to Christianity many times. He was stoned and left for dead, but he became the greatest evangelist in early Christendom. And that's what is a great lesson for us all, because if Paul can be forgiven, once Saul of Tarsus, then we all should be forgiven. But I think that this shows, why Tucker Carlson is so much more appealing than these stooges. Candace hit it on it perfect. This is not the same kind of humility you see from people like Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin, who can't even get on the airwaves and say, hey, I was totally wrong about the war in Iraq. That was wrong-headed. It wasn't a good idea to kill 1 million people and have a 20-year occupation there to depose Saddam and, satisfy the urgings of Benjamin Netanyahu when he testified to Congress that he wanted that to be done in September of 2002. It was wrong-headed. I was wrong. I have to do a penance for that. He's never done that. Tucker's done that a lot. He's really done that a lot on war especially. He calls himself, supportive of the most vile behavior. I was too. I'm not trying to say that, I'm to any respectable level on this, but you can see the difference in how people are perceived based upon their honesty in admitting mistakes. I think there's no greater sign of integrity, by the way, of admitting one's prior mistakes. And this is just an issue that shows, the poison that is Christian Zionism and how much of this country is captured, not only by Jewish Zionists, but Christian Zionists influencing our government, having standing power in AIPAC over, 2/3 of our legislators, I should say, and the executive branch and the deep state. The policy always remains the same, no matter who you elect, except for now it seems like the most radically pro-Zionist. And the hypocrisy is just too glaring that Americans are seeing this. Americans are having their eyes open for the first time in many ways, and it doesn't even, cross. It crosses the political spectrum. It really does. It's more generational in terms of young versus old people in a general sense than it is like left versus right. You're seeing this happen with young conservatives too. And that's where we are. But I would like to hear from you. Do you think Candace Owens is right on this? Is Tucker Carlson right on this? Is Christian Zionism a total toxic mentality that we need to disregard just like any other form of Zionist? Let me know down below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to Candace. Also, if you want to become a member, support the channel, click the join button below. You can get access to all of my videos before they go live to the general public if you do that. Also, for a free copy of my book, Compact of the Republic, click the link in the description below. You'll be shot off to a site. Plug in your email, I'll send that right to you. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.